Okay, so this is going to be my 2 cents worth to do with the Ford and Kavanaugh. The reason why this is going to be my first video and not going into more about me is because right now it is a hot topic, and it's something that I've discussed with a lot of friends on both sides and how they feel about it. I've seen a lot of Facebook posts and all that, so I want this to be my first one, so you know where I stand on things. And then in future vlogs I'll go into more detail about me and yada yada yada. So I wrote down a list because I've done this a few times, even uploaded a couple to YouTube and then deleted them. And I want to try and keep it down to 15 minutes. If I go over a couple of minutes, take an extra shot of vodka. Now, with the, if you don't know by now, with the Ford and Kavanaugh situation, I don't necessarily like Kavanaugh as a person. I think he's a bit of a douche, but I don't think he's guilty of what he's been accused of doing. Okay, so number one, as I said, I wrote all these, or typed all these out, I should say. Now, no one's backing her up, so nobody can remember being there, which doesn't necessarily mean that it didn't happen, but there was one thing that her best friend said, and that was she doesn't even know who Brett Kavanaugh was. She never even met Brett Kavanaugh. And the way Ford spoke in her opening statement, it sounded like she'd gone to a few of these gatherings and Brett Kavanaugh was there. So you'd think that you'd all sort of, you might not be best mates, but you'd all sort of know each other. Okay. The time frame keeps changing from the mid-80s to the early 80s to 82, summer of 82. You basically know, not 100% certain, but you basically know what year it is. If she's saying mid-80s, that could be up to 87. If she's saying early 80s, it's, you know, you're talking about 80 to 83. If she's given a time frame going, oh, it's the mid-80s, it's the early 80s, there's 7 years. That's a lot to not know. Anyway, just want to keep this rolling out. In her opening statement, she brought up the fact that she knew back in 2012 that Brett Kavanaugh was on the short list, or on a list to become Supreme Court judge, and this was something that was worrying her. If it was worrying her that much, why not say something then and not now, not after he's been nominated? Okay, as I said, I'm just going to roll through these. Now, also going back to the party, the number of the people at the party keeps on changing. So when I first heard it, and I had to rewind this, I watched the whole 9 hours and rewound and paused and asked a friend $1,000,001 questions, enough to be really annoying. So, Jack, I'm really, really sorry. The fact that she first said there was, besides herself, there was 4 people at the party. Well, that's the four guys. And then she said her best friend was there, so that makes 5 people at the party. Then she said there was a couple of girls there, so that's 6 or 7 people at the party. The number keeps on changing. Again, inconsistencies. Now, the things that have happened to her recently, so she spoke to a reporter at the Post. I got this in an article. She spoke to a reporter at the Post, and she can't remember whether she gave the reporter her therapy notes or she just summarized them. It would be something that you can remember, here's my notes of my therapy session. The polygraph. This is from, she can't remember whether she did it on the day of her grandmother's funeral or the day after. I'm pretty sure, like, I've had my grandmother pass, I've had my mother pass. I'm pretty sure I'd remember whether I gave the polygraph that day or the day after, especially considering it only happened a month or two ago. Okay, her boyfriend also did bring up the fact that she has trained someone on how assisted with a polygraph, I think the words were, and she said she never did when she was getting asked questions by the Senate. Okay, now her fear of flying, this is a PTSD one. Her fear of flying is, from my understanding, she's a frequent flyer. She flies a couple of times a year. And that's fine. But she did say that it's easier to fly when she's going on holiday because it's more enjoyable. Yeah, I call bullshit. Sorry. If you've got a fear of something, regardless of the outcome, and literally in her circumstance, regardless of the destination, it is still really scary. It is still the same amount of fear, regardless. Trust me. Know this one from experience, right? Next one. The crocodile tears. I'm pretty sure the same everywhere around the world. Crocodile tears. Throughout the whole statement, her whole opening statement, her voice was at the same monotone, close to tears, voice. And it was a little girl, annoying voice. And if that's the way she talks, I'm really sorry, but it's actually really irritating for a grown-ass woman. She could have been reading a shopping list, and it would have. You can do that. Yeah, I need some bacon and eggs, and some bread and milk, and a pound of kilogram of potatoes, and some ham for sandwiches, and a couple of tins of tuna. Yeah, it sounds like I'm about to cry, but no tears. Crocodile tears. Okay. Which actually, that brings me to a point with Kavanaugh. When he gave his statement, his voice did break a couple of times. And it was when his voice broke, he stopped, he paused, took a glass of water, centered himself, controlled himself, and then went back in to make his point. Yeah, I do that. I'm not saying whether that's proves that he's innocent or guilty, or the tears were any more real, but I do that. I stop and I center and I recompose myself and go back into doing what I was doing. Okay. Now, crocodile tears. Okay, Kavanaugh was attacked, has been attacked, on social media and everything about having anger issues. Now, if somebody accused you of sexual assault, I'm pretty sure you'd be really pissed off too. And this is, you're sitting in front of a Senate, and pardon my ignorance, the left side, which is the Democrats, are basically yelling at you, saying that you're guilty. This poor woman. I would be really pissed off, and I'm sure anybody else would be. So that's, just shut up. Just go and Google Jane Elliott and the blue-eyed, brown-eyed experiment, and hopefully you can see a link between the two. Now, I actually got asked this question today, and somebody said, what makes you think in his opening statement that he's telling the truth? And I thought about it and I went, well, it wasn't anything he said, it was what she said. It's really hard to prove that you weren't somewhere. If somebody wants proof that I was in the city on a certain date, I can actually, if somebody wants me to prove I was at the March for Men, I can actually prove that. And it's got nothing to do with Stubbs, it's got to do with, there's a couple of film crews, there was mates, everything. I can prove I was somewhere. But it's hard to prove that you weren't somewhere. So, it wasn't what he said, it was what she did that makes me believe him. It was the way his reaction was that makes me believe him. Now we're talking about character flaws when we're talking about proof of him. He drank in high school. Okay. He drank in high school. So did I. I'm pretty sure. I can remember the first time I got drunk, I basically inhaled a cask of wine. For those who do not know what a cask of wine is, it's cheap and nasty, and it's in a silver foil bag, and you call it goon, and it's just disgusting. But that doesn't mean I wasn't sexually assaulted, or did I sexually assault someone, or it doesn't mean I'm a bad character. Well, my drinking doesn't mean I'm a bad character. The fact I'm a bitch means I'm a bad character. Also, he's admitted that he likes beer. Now, if that's anything to do with a bad character, then 85% of the Australian population, male and female, are bad characters. Okay. And, there was the famous fight in the pub where he threw some ice. Now, don't get me wrong, I could be wrong, I could be really ignorant. Was it the recipe for frozen water, or was it the drug ice, Breaking Bad? Because if it was the drug ice, I'd be pissed off too if ice hit me in the head. But if we're just talking about frozen water, again, what has that say that he's a bad person and gives him a bad character reference? What do you do? I think I've thrown more in a pub. Now, as a sufferer of PTSD, I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I do know a little bit more about it than people who don't suffer from it. And I've spoken to other people that suffer from it, and I've spoken to a couple of people, psychiatrists and everything, that work with people that suffer from it. And their memories of the events that have caused their PTSD are vivid. It's like looking at a photo or watching a movie. You know it. You see it, you remember it, it's burnt into your brain. Now your brain on stressful situations and traumatic events can work one of a few ways, but one of them is either blocking it out so you don't remember any of it. Every now and again a memory will trickle through, but 99% of the time you'll block it out. But if a person has got PTSD, they remember everything, and they have triggers. So if somebody can ask me about my PTSD and what happened to me for me to get it, and I could give it to them, tell them exactly why that happened. But if I have an anxiety attack that's triggered it off, I remember everything like it's happening again. So I can go into more detail. So the fact that, again, she doesn't remember a lot. It was 36 years ago, and I can understand and not remembering everything. But there's key details that somebody who's got PTSD, I thought, would remember. Okay, now this one's on a personal note because this could just be me. When she said that she waited for the boys to go down, she locked herself in the bathroom and she waited for the boys to go downstairs, and then she left. She left her best friend in a stranger's house with 4 strange boys, one of which just tried to attack her. Again, could just be me. I never would have done that. I never would have left a friend alone with 4 drunk, strange guys. Especially considering one just attacked me. I'd get my friend out of there. I would drag her out screaming. I wouldn't care. I wouldn't necessarily have to tell her what I'd just gone through, but I'd get my friend out of there. To me, that's a huge character flaw about her. So all this has put a fire under the belly of the Me Too movement. Now, in an ideal world, the Me Too movement essentially is a good idea. But this isn't an ideal world, and we're not living in a utopia. And the Me Too is bad. It's actually bullshit. It's extremely flawed. Because we're now supposed to automatically believe a female that comes forward and says, Me Too. And this is a perfect example, between Ford and Kavanaugh. There's no proof that this happened, but we're all believing her because she says it happened. What the Me Too movement is doing is giving these women who've been scorned or hurt or just want their 15 minutes of fame to go in and say, this happened, me too. And it could be so many years down the track that it's destroying families, and I'm not talking about the family unit, I'm talking about the family people individually. So his wife, who's got social occasions and work, his kids that still go to school, what can hurt is those side glances. You think of when somebody's passed on and people give you that look of, oh, that poor thing, that's the one who's so and so passed away. It is heart wrenching. But when it's something like this, it's worse because you get labelled just as guilty as them. And I also read somewhere that false allegations don't hurt. Or allegations don't hurt. And I was like, yeah, well, false ones do. And you've got the lacrosse team who happened at, I think it was Duke University, I could be wrong. I don't know the full story about that, but I know it was false allegations and kids lost their scholarship and got kicked off the team and careers were ruined. Now there's also 2 different stories of 2 different men, 2 different situations where both men committed suicide over false allegations, and they committed suicide after the apparent victim came forward and said it was bullshit. One of them goes even worse, where a year after he killed himself, his mother killed herself. She was just so distraught. And shit sticks. When somebody throws shit, it sticks to what it hits. And this is what's happening, is it's ruining lives. It's not just ruining the person that you've accused, it's ruining everybody around them. So this young boy in England who committed suicide, his mother was ruined too. And whatever vendetta or whatever reason this girl said what she said, she basically murdered, I don't care what anybody says, she basically murdered these two people. The mother had nothing to do with it, and she basically murdered the mother as well. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. So whatever the Democrats are doing and the Me Too movement is doing, Democrats are after votes. Their votes are going to come from the Me Too movement and the feminists. I say, live your life honestly. Take emotion out of it and lose logic and facts. And change the genders even. And then use logic and facts. Don't forget to take the emotion out of it. Look at it differently. Don't look at it if it was your son that was accused, not your daughter, as the victim. Swap the genders, do anything, but for God's sake, take emotion out of it. So it's got nothing to do with anything that anybody else has been through. It's got to do with the victim, which the Me Too movement was all supposed to be about the victims, and now because of all the false claims, the real victims are not coming forward. You've made it worse for them. Not better, not easier. You've made it worse than ever before. They were better off coming forward in their time than what you created. Anyway, that's enough from me for my first vlog. I've gone 7 minutes over than what I wanted, but I think the noise is better. I'll play it back. If it sucks, I'll redo it after I vomit. And I hope to do more of these, but we'll see how I go. Anyway, have a good night. Bye.